Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Ash.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to our kind of introduction beginner's guide to Formula One almost. And this is an introduction to the teams and drivers today. So we're going to give an introduction who the teams are, who drive for them, and their kind of aims for the season ahead. So we're going to work through the championship order from last year, starting at the top, which is with Team Mercedes. And Mercedes, a goal for them is to continue breaking records and to win again.
Yeah, and their number one driver, based on the championship from last season, is Lewis Hamilton. Now, his aim for 2020 is quite simply going to be trying to get that 7th World Championship, match Michael Schumacher's record, but also there are a number of records that he is very close to achieving. So it'll be just to see how many of those he can actually beat and how many he can match.
His teammate, Valtteri Bottas. And Valtteri Bottas's goal for 2020 will purely be to birth Valtteri 3.0 to be even better than Valtteri 2.0 that we saw last year. And can he challenge his teammate Lewis Hamilton for the title?
Next in the championship was Ferrari. Now, they are the big name in Formula One in terms of history, but their aim for 2020 is to try and get back on track with that. Now, last year, their car, it's safe to say, wasn't the best designed in terms of all-round ability. So their aim will be to try and balance that out a little bit and to try and compete consistently across the season, not just when we get to the power-hungry circuits.
And their number one driver, bit of a different one, so we're going to go for where they finished in championship position. So I'll go Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc is to build on a very strong first season at Ferrari to gain more wins and convert more of his pole positions, if he has a similar sort of great poles from last year, into race wins, as he only obviously secured 2 race wins from his 7 pole positions that he gained last year.
And number 2 almost for them is Sebastian Vettel. Now, the main aim for him is to try and eradicate the mistakes that have crept into his driving over the last 2 seasons, but it would also be to try and stop that progress almost of Charles Leclerc and just try and get back a little bit more control within the team that towards the end of last season he did lose in terms of being the outright number 1.
And we move on to third team, and that is Red Bull. And Red Bull's aim has really got to be providing Max Verstappen a car worthy of winning a championship. Obviously, it's a year under the belt with Honda as well, improving the aero package overall so that they can compete more closely with their rivals of Mercedes and Ferrari more consistently. And yeah, can they challenge for a title in 2020?
And their number 1 driver is Max Verstappen. Now, his aim is to carry on doing what he is doing with the car that he's got. However, it's to work with Red Bull to develop a car that will be able to compete for championships, because not only do many people on YouTube think that he will eventually be a world champion, but there are a lot of pundits actually close within the sport that believe he deserves it. So it's, can he actually work on that development front, like such as drivers like Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel and Michael Schumacher, actually developing cars around them.
And the second driver within the team is Alexander Albon, and for me, he now needs to build on the platform that he got, and he needs to be competing closer to Max Verstappen and making sure that he competes with the Ferraris and the Mercedes. It isn't just good finishing 6th next season. He's going to have to challenge for, if it's a car worthy enough of podiums and doing it consistently, not just on kind of one-off occasions, which was probably Brazil this year.
And best of the rest last season was McLaren. So their aim for 2020 is to continue the progress they've been making over the last few seasons in the development front and to be challenging for that best of the rest again, but aiming to try and break into that top 3 teams battle. So rather than them getting the occasional 4th and 5th place finish because of retirements, it's to try and get there on merit alone.
And the number 1 driver for McLaren is Carlos Sainz, finishing 6th in the championship last year. For me, I think he just has to prove consistently finishing either. I think 6th would be unlikely to achieve again with Alexander Albon having a full season, probably, at Red Bull, although you never know with them. But finishing 7th and being a very strong midfield performer again, that, well, for him either lays the platform McLaren to push on in 2021, or if it inclines him to maybe see if he can get a seat at a bigger team in the future.
And their number 2 driver is Lando Norris. So he's coming out of his rookie season in Formula 1. He managed to out-qualify Carlos Sainz over the season last year, but it's his Sunday performances where he will be aiming to improve and to be more consistent in terms of his finishing in and around the points and trying to get up closer to that top 6 drivers when it's possible for him.
P5, Renault. And there as a team has really got to improve the consistency and make a serious challenge to be best of the rest again and to beat McLaren. Obviously, being a works team, to really build that platform. I don't think they can get anywhere near to challenging up the top of the field this season, but can they lay the platform that if they get it right in 2021, they can be competing at the top?
Number 1 driver for them, Daniel Ricciardo. He is now in his 2nd season with Renault, and the aim for him will be to have that aura around him that means the team is his. It's going to allow him to have more influence in the development route the team take, and it will be able to boost his results, allowing him to consistently finish in the points and challenge him for that best of the rest position that he should have been closer to across last season.
His new teammate, and a return to F1, Esteban Ocon. And his main goal from this season of 2020 is to prove the talent that many people believe that he has. Felt hard done by from losing the seat at Force India to make way for Lance Stroll coming in. Esteban, obviously highly rated in the junior categories. I believe even beat Max Verstappen in one championship. I think maybe the F3. Yeah. Could be getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was right. But yes, a talented driver, and it is going to be interesting to see, can he, with a year out of the sport, can he prove he's still got it?
Now we're on to AlphaTauri. So this is the rebrand of Toro Rosso. For them, their aim for 2020 is to continue the progress they've been making from being just a B team almost to Red Bull, but actually developing into a manufacturer in their own right. So there's been a lot of progress made, and it's just whether or not they can continue with that and try and make a way into that midfield battle more consistently, as we mentioned it quite a bit last season that there were a lot of races where they just dropped off in performance. So hopefully it's another one where they'll be able to compete in all races.
Their number 1 driver, again another one of a difficult one as there is no real standout, so we'll go championship position again, and that is Pierre Gasly. And for me, Pierre Gasly, his goal for the season has got to be to prove to a more competitive midfield team that he would be worth a shot at to drive that team forward. So looking at the McLarens, the Renaults, the Racing Points, if an opportunity came up within those teams, that he is the guy that they want. So from how he finished the last season very strongly, can he have that throughout the whole season?
And his teammate, Daniel Kvyat, His aim for 2020 is to go back to the start of 2019. So he started off the season really well, however he had the disappointment of not being promoted to the Red Bull seat when Pierre Gasly was dropped, and that did affect his results in the second half of the season, and he did seem quite despondent. So it'll be to go back to enjoying the racing and showing that performance that he has in him.
We then move on to Racing Point. A big season for Racing Point, because now this is the first full season that they're going to have with the backing of Lawrence Stroll's money. An interesting one of how hard they go, a lot of those midfield teams, of do they risk trying to be overly competitive for one season in 2020, or do they focus investing more time and effort into the 2021 and getting that right. In the second half of the season, they had a very competitive car. Can they have a competitive midfield car and challenge for best of the rest, would be Racing Point's goal.
Their number one driver is Sergio Perez, and his aim for 2020 is to try and pick up more results in the points, as there was a period last season where he wasn't in them. I think it was 6 races.
It was Azerbaijan to Spa.
Which I can't do the maths quickly, but
I believe it might be 8 races.
8 races, there we go. So it's making sure that he's consistently in the points where he should be and battling for best of the rest. Also, it's the opportunity for him to actually take that step as team leader, and once again he is another driver that, with the 2021 regs coming in the following season, will be looking to find the team that is going to be built around him.
His teammate, Lance Stroll. And Lance Stroll's one is very simple. In the race, he has proven that he has good racecraft. He can hold position once he is there, and he is a competitive and driver there on merit when he's in a race. His qualifying is not good enough. Too many times he exited in Q1, and he wasn't able to find that lap when it was needed to get that car higher up, which meant that he was always starting races on the back foot and having to do the quite really good race starts that he did more often than was needed.
And then it's Alfa Romeo. So their aim for 2020 is to almost step out of just being a B team for Ferrari, because that's the view you get considering they are being used as a feeder for drivers into the Ferrari program. But it's also for them to actually try and, it's another one, a full season of competitiveness. Last season they dropped off quite quickly in terms of their ability to challenge for points, and at the end of the season it was almost, you could guarantee that they were going to be around 3rd and 4th last pretty consistently.
Number 1 is the Iceman himself, and that is Kimi Raikkonen. Difficult one for him in terms of to find a goal, because he is at the tail end of his career. So I suppose it's goal more to kind of leave his legacy on the sport in, can he drive Alfa Romeo forward with performances on the track, and by helping a young driver Antonio Giovinazzi to develop, and can he get that Alfa out of the shadow of Ferrari and a genuinely competitive midfield team, to maybe even competing for best of the rest, a bit like Toro Rosso were achieving beyond their means in 2019.
And his teammate is Antonio Giovinazzi. His aim for 2020 is to try and be a bit more consistent. He had a lot of races last season where you'd look at and say he's got that ability to challenge in Formula 1, but he also had probably the same number of races where you could say, has he got that ability to be there long term? And there were questions over whether or not he would keep his seat. So it's just trying to find that consistency and keep that ability on show as much as possible.
We now move on to the penultimate team in the standings, and that was Haas. Haas, they really need to get back to competing in the midfield. 2019 was a season that in their history they'd like to forget. From 2016 to 17 to 18 there was steady progression within the team, and they were really learning and earning their place within Formula 1. They need to go back to that process, make sure that they get the car right with no major rule changes and the same sets of tyres as they were last year, which was the main issue they had this year. It is something that they've just got to be on top of.
And their lead driver is Kevin Magnussen. So his aim for 2020 is one of two things. It is either to have a season that shows his ability and allows him that opportunity to take a step up to a top team again, like when he was racing for McLaren at the start of his career, ready for the 2021 rule change, or it's another seat driver who has to be looking at getting the team to be built around him. He is the younger driver of the pairing, which means he is the one where has the most to gain long term, and the team will have that advantage to build around him. So he's got to identify which one is best for him and go for it for this season.
His partner, Romain Grosjean, and his goal has got to be to prove to people that he is worth that seat in Formula One, and to finally give the consistency to his talent to really drive that Haas team forward. With his speed and Kevin Magnussen's consistency, they could have one of the best partnerships on the grid in the midfield and really be competing again at the top of that midfield if the car is right. Romain Grosjean needs to put aside all the kind of incidents that have plagued his career at times and make sure that he, gives everything he's got, because this very well may be his last season within Formula One.
And the final team is Williams. Now, we could be over the top with an aim for Williams, but let's be realistic about it. Their aim is to try and get into Q2 a couple of times this season and to not be finishing last in every single race.
Their number one driver is George Russell, and George Russell for me needs to have an equally dominant performance over new teammate Nicholas Latifi as he did with Robert Kubica in 2019, and prove to Mercedes that he is worth the shot in 2021 to drive the team forward and be the future of Mercedes F1 if they continue to have much of a future within Formula One. But yes, he has got to really do again that dominance and get that Mercedes seat.
And his teammate, as Mike said, was Nicholas Latifi. Now the aim for him this season, as it is his first year in Formula One, is to just try and get that second Williams closer to George Russell. Unfortunately, last year Robert Kubica wasn't able to do it, so it would be nice to see a battle that is a little bit closer for the two. And if he can replicate some of the results that George Russell is getting, it means that Williams are going to be able to have that step forward that they are looking for.
And guys, that is it. That is a roundup of the teams, the 10 teams that are competing in the F1 2020 season, and all 20 drivers who will be competing. Let us know down in the comments below who is the drivers that you're rooting for this year, who's the teams you're rooting for this year, and if you agree with our aims for the drivers this year, or if you have any other aims that you would be interested in telling us what they want for the drivers. But Ash, what else can they do?
Make sure to subscribe so you're able to get our videos going into your YouTube inbox and you'll be able to see what we're talking about. And if you press the bell icon, you'll get a notification when one goes live, and you'll be able to get on as soon as possible to see the videos that we're putting out.
And if you've liked this video, let us know. Give us a thumbs up. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.